Hi, this is Duane, and I'd like to talk just briefly about the intrinsic logic of fingering. Which finger should go where? I've subtitled this, Don't Reinvent the Wheel Whenever Possible. There's no laws that have been handed down about fingering. I've had many students say, well, what finger should I use? Well, there's no absolute answer. I would answer that if I could, but there's no absolute answer because fingering is not written in stone. Moses did not hand down a commandment on fingering, and neither did Mozart or Billy Joel or Dave Brubeck or any of the greats. I know that comes as a shock to many adults because they think back to their piano lesson days as children and recall their teacher telling them things like, don't use your thumb on that key, and cross your third finger over, and so forth. So while there's no absolutes when it comes to fingering, there are certainly general principles that pianists have discovered down through the years. So whenever possible, don't reinvent the wheel. We all learn from experience, but it doesn't have to be our experience we learn from. We can learn from the experience of others. We can stand on the shoulders of giants that have gone before us and take advantage of what they have discovered about fingering and other areas as well, of course. So, I'd like to just share some general principles, the intrinsic logic of fingering with you. If you see a passage in the sheet music or you're improvising and you know it's going to get higher, if you see it move higher on the staff, then doesn't it make sense to use a low finger? Fingers are numbered, by the way, from the thumb out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you see a passage that goes up, doesn't it make sense to start not on your little finger or on your third finger, but on your thumb wherever possible? Or if it starts on a black note, I would probably start on your second finger. Okay? So start on a low finger. And just the opposite if you want to go down. Of course, if you see a passage that goes down, then start on a high finger. Same thing's true in the left hand. If you see a passage that goes up, start on a high finger, and if you see a passage that goes down, start on a low finger. Okay? That's just logic, just common sense. Now, hold your hand up in front of you. The longest fingers are in the middle, right? Your thumb is far and away the shortest because it starts at a lower point on your hand. Okay, now look at the piano keyboard. The black keys are the furthest away from you, right? So which fingers can reach the black keys best? The thumb? The little finger? No. The long fingers, the middle fingers. Therefore, whenever possible, play the black keys with your long fingers instead of your thumb. In other words, don't go or something like that, but you know, use your, see how much easier that is to play with your long fingers because they're out there over the black keys already, right? So the corollary to that is obvious. Use your thumb and little finger on the white keys whenever possible. And I realize it's not always possible. For example, if you're playing octaves, you've got to use your thumb and your little finger, unless you have huge, well, yeah, you'd always have to use your thumb, okay? So there's times when you have to use your thumb on black keys, but for the most part, that's why I say there's no laws, but, you know, from experience, you'll learn that it's best not to use your thumb on a black key, okay? Now, a scale contains 8 keys, right? 8 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're not going to play scales, but melodies are made out of scales, aren't they? For example, Joy to the World is just a major scale descending. Doesn't matter what key you play it in. It still has just 8 keys descending, right? So you have 5 fingers, 8 keys, 5 fingers. So it's logical to assume that you'll have to use some fingers more than once. On right-hand scale passages ascending, going up, begin on the white keys, start on your thumb, and then cross your thumb under your third finger. You see that? Except when the 4th degree of the scale, the 4th note, is a black key. For example, in the F scale, the 4th note is a black key, so you wouldn't put your thumb under there because you're going to trip and fall down and have an accident there. So use your 4th finger there and then cross your thumb under. By the way, try not to jump. Try not to go. But same way coming down. It's just the opposite. Okay? It's just the opposite. Okay? And the reverse is, the reverse is true with your left hand. You use 5 fingers and then you cross your third finger over. Coming down, it's just the opposite. Thumb under your third finger. Okay? Now, on scale passages beginning with black keys, say you're starting on D flat, don't start on your thumb, start on a long finger, because your long fingers will buy the black keys, right? Preferably your index finger. And then cross your thumb under whenever the next white key occurs. See that? Makes it nice and smooth, doesn't it? On chromatic passages, in other words, passages that go like that, the best way I've found to finger it is use just 1 and 3, except where 2 white keys are in a row. 1, 3, 1, 3, and then here don't use your third finger because you need it there, so use your second finger. So 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Same way coming down. Third thumb, third, second thumb, third thumb, third, second or thumb, doesn't matter where you in, which note you end up. Okay? So, fingering on chords now is a little different than melody because it's largely dictated by the size of the chord. If you have a 4-note chord, for example, like that, and you have 5 fingers, you have to use 4 fingers to do that, right? So whatever fits best. I mean, if that fits best, use it. If that fits best, use it. That does for me. I mean, everybody's hand is different too. That's one thing about fingering. Everybody's hand's different. So fingering that works well for one person may not work so well for another person, depending upon the length of their fingers and their dexterity and so on. Okay, I have a very small hand, so I have to make do with what I have. So if you're in a 4 or 5, there's 5-note chords such as these, and obviously you have to use all 5 notes, 5 fingers on those, don't you? Okay. Now if you only have 3 notes, then does it make sense to play like that? Probably not. Probably not. Probably the best way is like that: little finger, third finger, thumb. If you're starting out and playing on the C chord, that's how I'd play it. If you were playing the second inversion of the C chord, I'd still play it that way: little finger, third, thumb. In other words, the notes are spread out, so why don't you spread your fingers out? Again, just common sense. If you're playing the second inversion of the C chord, instead of using your third finger, I'd use my second finger. Why? Because this note is closer to that than it is to that, so I use the finger that's closest, right? Okay, if you still find it hard to believe that fingering is not written in stone, then watch any video, say, of Art Tatum, which you can find on YouTube just by typing in Art Tatum piano. He was one of the great jazz pianists, maybe the greatest, and he absolutely stunned classical musicians with his blazing speed while using extremely unorthodox fingering. I remember once Rubinstein went to see him, he'd heard about Tatum, and he was just blown away by the speed with which Tatum could execute his runs, and he used very unorthodox fingering. In other words, if Tatum had taken piano lessons, which he didn't, of course, the piano teacher would have slapped his fingers. Okay. Well, there's some general ideas about fingering, and I hope that helps. But the bottom line is, the take-home thing that you should remember is fingering is common sense. So use what people have discovered over the years, but also just use your brain and your hand and see what works. Thanks for being with me. Bye-bye for now.